So now that we got ourselves set up to where we can actually go through and traverse the level, we want to start working on the interaction system. So this is going to be done through the form of a ability, specifically what we're going to call a passive ability. And I'll kind of explain what those are. And that's kind of about it. So we're going to keep it very simple for now. We just want the ability to be given to us, automatically activated. And we also are going to want, when we press our interact key, that it fires a input pressed function that is inside of that ability. So again, keeping it very simple, we just want to get this to where we have it set up. We can confirm that abilities are being given to us and also given to us and activated if we define that as an option. And just as, make sure everything is good to go kind of from the start. So to begin, if we really quickly go to our player state, you'll kind of see what I'm referring to. So under our abilities, which is our ability system component, we have some options. So we have our starting abilities, starting passive abilities, starting attributes, and starting effects. So we're going to be focusing on these starting passive abilities. So basically we add the ability in here and we have to tell it to give it to us. So what we're going to do is basically do that part now. So first things first, let's head over to our pawn and go specifically to the possessed by. And basically, once we initialize our ability system component, we want to go ahead and give us our, abilities. So what we can do is just, for example, inside of initialize ability, actually, we can just write this out. So in possessed by, after we initialize our ability system, we're going to go ahead and grab the the input ability system component. So you input ability system component. Let's just call it ability system component equals get ability system component. And obviously we need to cast because the get ability system component returns the base ability system component. So let's cast to you input ability system component. Now it went ahead and included it for me. So I'm going to move it where it belongs in my opinion. So up here, because it's part of our actual game modules. And then where are we at? Right here. So back in possessed by, all we want to do is just search for give. And you can see we have give starting abilities, attributes, effects. So give starting abilities, give starting effects, and give starting attributes. So we're going to go ahead and apply our attribute set, or sets that we define, our starting abilities, and our starting effects. So I'll explain more about what these all are as we go through, but you should hopefully kind of have a rough idea on what abilities are as we are about to make one, but I'm going to be explaining more heavily as we go through, just to kind of begin more or less. So we have that set up. I'm going to go ahead and close down the editor, and now we can write the actual ability. So what we're going to do is under our public in our main module, we're going to create a new Unreal class, and it's going to be of the type input gameplay ability. Now, like I had mentioned, this is another class that comes with ability system core, and basically all it does is it has a additional tag that is exposed to blueprint. That is our input tag. Now this tag gets associated with a input action as we defined in the data asset for the ability inputs, which again, we're going to also be doing shortly. And anytime that, say, you press a key that has that input action that is linked to that tag, it will go ahead and find any ability that has that input tag. If it finds it, it'll activate it. If it's already activated, it'll fire off the input pressed function. So the path for this class is going to be in gas abilities. So we're going to put anything gameplay ability system related under the gas folder. And this goes for any module we make. So now we want to name it. So gameplay ability underscore interact. And this just follows along with Epic's naming scheme for the gameplay abilities. So we can go ahead and press OK. And we might end up making some subfolders for our abilities as well. It just depends on how many we're going to end up with inside of this actual module. I don't think it's going to be very many because, again, we are taking the modules approach, which means we're going to be breaking up our code into kind of their own separate chunks, so to speak. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and make a public section, make a constructor, and go ahead and override the activate ability. Likewise, go ahead and override the input pressed function as well. So what we want to do is print out activate ability so we can confirm that that is good to go, and make a print on input pressed to make sure that is also good to go. So let's go ahead, create our definitions. And we can go ahead and write our logs. So UE log, log temp, warning. I just like warning because it shows up yellow. Text, let's just do activated input ability. Or better yet, name of the function. Now we can do the same thing, copy, paste, and change activate ability to input pressed, just so we already know. Now that input tag that I had mentioned in the constructor, if we search for input tag, here's where we can go ahead and define it. So once we have this ability, we confirm that this is good to go and working. So I'm going to go ahead and start compiling while I talk. We're going to go ahead and set up some places in our core module where we can go ahead and define a bunch of these tags. So basically the plan would be to have, under our public folder, a folder called data, and then a child folder in there called, say, tags. So data is going to contain any sort of potential data assets that we need to access across all the modules. And the tags folder is going to contain all of the gameplay tags that we need to access across any of the modules. So now that we have that, let's go back to the editor. Let's leave the player state open and go to our core folder. Inside of our core folder, make a, same kind of thing, a new folder called gas. Then in there, a new folder called attributes, or sorry, not attributes, abilities. So now we can just quickly create the gameplay ability underscore interact and name it GA. So all of our abilities are going to be prefixed with GA underscore and then the name. So GA underscore interact. Okay. So here we can see we have some auto activate options and end ability. If the input is pressed while it's active, we're not going to use either of these because we're going to define this as a starting/passive ability, which is going to automatically activate the ability. So we don't actually need to do this inside the ability itself. However, we are going to use the input tag and head over to, we'll just use test.statetree because we don't have a proper, tag as is, but we can go ahead and set it to test.statetree. We just got to remember that tag. So under BP player state, go to starting passive abilities and add GA underscore interact. Compile and save and press play. Okay, so adding ability, and this is actually a log that I need to get rid of, but we have the activate ability, input ability. So that's actually printing out. So now we just got to set it up to where we can have a input register to call that input pressed function. So back in our player controller, just so we can load up our DA ability inputs, we can just use a temporary input action. So we'll just use the crouch input action that comes with skgsf and give it the tag of test.statetree. So that same input tag that we put in the ability. Save that, and now we just need to put this crouch as a option in our mapping context. That's basically it. So in our player controller, let's go ahead and load up our input mapping context. And darn, unfortunately, crouch is already taken up. So we're just going to, we'll just use it. So IA crouch is set to left control. So we know left control should activate the ability. So left control, left control, left control, left control. As you can see, it is triggering input pressed input ability. So it is going through and actually firing off this function every time we press the key. So we can do our interaction in here. Now, something else that comes with the option, and that we are going to use in this context just so we don't have to pass data from, client to server. So if I'm playing as client and I press left control, and currently nothing is happening. Okay, make sure I'm the right pawn. So that'll be something we have to debug and try to figure out why the ability is not being, well, seemingly given to us. Let me clear the log so I can actually look through it really quick to make sure. Okay, so it's adding the ability. However, we cannot activate due to the net execution policy of locally predicted the GA interact when not local. So we're going to dive into this and try to figure out exactly what's going on in the next video and get it to where we can actually activate the ability, right from the get-go for us. So with that said, I will see you in the next video.